bold journalism,
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
exposing lawlessness,
Hernandez, who is ideological,
finding the truth,
and use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
What's going on, thought criminals? Welcome to Frontlines. My name is Drew Hernandez. I am here with the great Charlie Do Not Amplify KIRK.
That's correct.
Ladies and gentlemen. He is the founder of TPUSA. Here we are at AmFest. Charlie, okay, let's just get into it.
Yes.
on the Twitter files, okay?
All right.
Because straight up, I told you immediately. I said,
I gotta
dude,
brand it, right?
You gotta brand that, bro, because
You were on that.
They hand this
I
stuff
know.
directly
I
over
know.
to you, but it also gives you credibility. Because if they don't want to amplify Charlie KIRK, it's for a specific reason. What is that reason, Charlie?
I got to be honest. It's been a branding miss. I got to have the shirts out already. Do not amplify. Look, the reason was this, is that we were the second largest conservative Twitter account on the planet, according to Axios. That's not my numbers. That's them. It was Donald Trump, then us. And we were right behind AOC for the third largest political account. I grew up on Twitter. I know the platform really well. I know how to go viral on Twitter. I was tweeting every 45 minutes. I knew the algorithm. I wasn't doing anything, that would be considered suspicious or sneaky. I just happened to really understand it. And we grew the platform, got a lot of retweets from Trump, and over time leveraged that into a big account. And during the Chinese Fauci coronavirus, I just wasn't going along with the narrative. I didn't think it was as big of a hysteria as people would say. I thought it was a mistake to shut people down and lock them down. I think it's the worst mistake the civilization has ever done.
Yeah.
I thought it was stupid not to even talk about vitamin D and intravenous therapy and ozone and baby aspirin and ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and quercetin, quercetin, whatever you pronounce it, like all these different treatments that could potentially improve. Like, you're not allowed to talk about any of that.
Yes.
So I started tweeting. I just asked questions like, hey, it looks interesting that hydroxychloroquine might be able to work, and suppressed. And so it really was COVID. And they needed to shut me up during COVID, which is very dark, because my Twitter account and sharing these heterodox ideas might actually save lives.
But they want to be, this is what we talk about all the time, Charlie, is you see these global powers, you see the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, you see the Dr. Fauci's of the world. They want to be God and play God. They want to be in the position of God. So they believe that they know what's better for you. They believe they know what medicine truly is.
Yes.
They want to define or redefine science and even terms. They want to redefine what a woman or a female is, or what a male or a biological boy or man is. So it makes sense to me that anyone that is coming out opposing that on a grand scale, on a platform that they control in collusion with the FBI, is going to be suppressed, deplatformed.
Yes, they have to suppress us. They are not able to win or to hold on to power if ideas are allowed to be shared freely. This is why what Elon is doing is so spectacular. And like, some people are like, oh, Elon is awful because he has connections to China and Neuralink. I fully acknowledge all of his faults, okay? Donald Trump has some faults too, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm not dwelling on the faults. I'm looking at something very simple. He purchased Twitter. He didn't have to do that. And now I know I had a do not amplify tag. James O'Keefe, Babylon B, James Lindsay, who's walking around here somewhere. They all have their Twitter accounts back. That's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Period. And
Yeah.
it's okay to celebrate a good thing. There's not always like a deeper story at play. Yeah. We'll see where it goes next. If Elon tries to turn it into WeChat, that would be a bad thing.
Well, the
okay?
number one thing I always say, Charlie, is just because someone says something or does something we like on the right or the conservative movement doesn't mean we worship them and make them invincible. We have to hold them accountable at all costs.
Yeah, so if Elon were to come to America Fest, which I wish he would have, and I would have had a chance to interview him, I would have asked him, why are you even playing with this transhumanist thing? I think it's really evil and wrong. So it's not a worship thing. It's not even, I think he's doing everything right. I think on this very specific civilizational altering issue of free speech, he's done more than the entire Republican Party has done over the last 2 decades, period. And that's not even an argument. The Republican Party is worthless on the issue of speech. Elon Musk has done something worthy.
Let me ask you this, Charlie. Obviously, you being involved in the Twitter files,
Yes.
that's like going to be the highlight of your life, seeing that. Is there anything else in particular that really stuck out to you? I know there's a lot. FBI colluding, Yoel Roth, President Trump, the deplatforming,
Yes.
all of that. What to you also stuck out to
Well,
you?
I think we have a lot more to learn. What I found interesting, there's so much. I mean, I could really do a series of shows here.
Documentary series.
Yeah. If you really read into Yoel Roth, he's a total freak, by the way.
Yep.
How casual Yoel Roth was with the power he wielded. I mean, this was a petulant boy king in front of a computer screen that no one elected. And so one of my big takeaways, and this is a question we need to keep on asking, is, okay, we acknowledge that sometimes in civilization, some people need to have power. The founding fathers answered the question of the necessity for power, of who gets it and how do we give it. Because the power starts with the sovereign, which is the individual made in the image of God. Okay, so then who voted for Yoel Roth?
Nobody.
Precisely, and that's really wrong.
Yes.
Right? No one voted for him. He didn't have to collect signatures. He didn't have to debate. He was an invisible censor behind a computer screen that was able to alter a presidential election because he had a PhD and wrote something super creepy from University of Pennsylvania and basically became the de facto CEO of a company. That's wrong.
And Charlie, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on. The guy has some obvious, strange, bizarre.
I said he's a freak, and
yes,
he is. I mean,
attractions to children.
Yeah, maybe.
Tweeting
I mean,
things. Dude, Charlie, he
we don't
tweeted
know.
things.
I have to be super fair because, like,
Charlie,
he did
it's not
tweets-
being fair. It's not being fair. The guy tweeted, "Oh, my neighbor.
Trust me, I'm not defending
There's
him.
babies.
You know that.
There's
Yeah.
babies screaming in the other room. Oh, is he looking at pornography?
Okay,
what
I
kind of
didn't-
pornography
I
is this guy?
I didn't
is
know
this guy
that.
okay.
Okay, so I
I'm not.
acknowledge
I'm
that.
not. I'm not challenging. I'm just saying
No,
this
no.
guy. I want it. This is what I'm. This is the
I'm
point.
just trying not to call everyone a pedophile.
I
That's
want to
like-
know.
like, I just-
Yoel Roth has some serious issues, and what I want to
Oh, I mean,
know
he's a freak, as I
is,
said.
was he actually strategically placed there by the FBI? Because why were they not going after the child pornography?
No, I mean, this is
but
actually
they were
a good
going
point.
after President Trump.
This I totally sympathize with Jack Posobiec alluded to, and you, which is, okay, this guy, at the speculation, you're correct. I think that there's probably some very dark stuff this guy does. What we do know is he wrote a whole dissertation on why underage people should be able to use Grindr. That alone is enough to say this guy is morally compromised, okay? So therefore, it shouldn't be too adventurous for us to say, okay, this guy repeatedly talks about what kind of gay pornography he talks about, has a fascination about underage boys. Okay, would it be logical that our intelligence agency would find that to be a perfect elite to capture?
Exactly.
That, I think, is a thought
That's what
exercise.
I want. I'm just saying I want to know.
No, and we may never know that.
I just
but
wanna know.
I think it's hyper logical, and I don't think it should be considered, wrong to even speculate, because the idea of compromised people being used by the intelligence agencies happens all the time.
Yes.
Just go look at Jeffrey
It makes
Epstein.
total sense. Exactly. Charlie, you know this stuff. Come on, dude. Don't say, Charlie, you know. Charlie, okay.
No,
now that you're a father.
we don't know the Yoel Roth thing. But I say we know he's a freak,
He's a freak, Charlie.
but we don't know to what extent. We got to be factual, Drew Hernandez.
Okay, Charlie, let me ask you this. Now that you're a father, okay?
Yes, it's a life-changing.
How has this changed your perspective on everything?
I mean, it changes
Now
everything.
that you brought a baby into the world, how
Well,
has
I didn't
everything
bring it.
changed for you?
I helped. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Erica deserves all the credit. So I'll tell you one thing. When you look down at your child, all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I get all the scriptures of God looking down at you. And you're like, now it makes sense. It's like, wow. That's a big deal.
Not only just that, but the perspective on, I mean, you are the front man of
Yes.
this student organization,
Yes.
leading the youth, and all the stuff and all the attacks that we've been seeing on the youth just this year with the mutilization
Yes.
of their genitals, trying to make it normalized, just pushing all this kind of stuff on children. How has that impacted your view on
Everything.
leadership?
I mean, it makes me
with a child.
It makes me a very angry person sometimes. I gotta be honest. Like, your love then turns to anger like really quickly.
Yes.
Like, who would touch a child like this? And I mean, you want to go Old Testament very quickly on these people, like very quickly. And then also, I want my daughter, who still cannot talk or understand speech, to eventually be able to grow up in a country that is free and a happy place. It is not free right now. It is some ways free, some ways not, but we got a lot of work to do, and it is heading in the wrong direction rapidly. So it makes you want to fight harder, and it also makes me want to defeat these evil people even more.
And that's where we're at. This is what AmFest is. This is what TPUSA
Amen.
is. It's saving the soul not only of the country, but children that are the future as well. Charlie Kirk,
Drew, I'm a big fan of yours. You know that.
Dude,
that.
I'm so thankful.
No,
I'm thankful.
do we have time? Do we have a couple minutes?
Yes.
Was that a 2-minute mark? Drew is great. He is one of a kind. You could hear him in the next building. I'm telling you. When Drew does his show, I hear him from Zeman, like I'm having a meeting. If you don't understand that reference, that means you don't work for Turning Point USA, which means you're missing out. And Drew is so passionate. But what I love about Drew is every time I asked you, like, go here, go cover that, go here, go cover that, it was always yes. And honestly, I think 2023, there's gonna be some huge stories you're gonna go break. I know that. The Roe stuff, honestly, the Roe decision, the narrative would have been way different if you would not have been at the courts, at the steps. I believe that. You caught one after the other of these lunatics that were just, were demonic. Like, there's really no other way to put it. And so you deserve a lot of credit, Drew. You do a great job.
Charlie, love you, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you
God
so
bless
much
you.
in everything
Thank
you
you.
do. Charlie Kirk, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Drew Hernandez. We will have more coming up from the break, so stay with us. What's going on, Thought Criminals? Welcome to Frontlines. I am your host, Drew Hernandez. I am here with the great Dennis Prager. Dennis, thank you so much for joining me on the Frontlines today.
That's a very lovely thing to say.
Absolutely.
Thank
You
you.
take a look at PragerU,
Yeah.
and PragerU has been on the front lines for years,
Yep.
combating what's so-called education, which is actually indoctrination.
Yep.
You guys get accused of the whole 9 yards. You post the 10 Commandments on YouTube. You guys get accused of murder, right? A lot of the disinformation and misinformation we are experiencing right now in this current timeline is absolutely insane. And it makes sense why they're trying to censor everyone and anyone telling the truth.
This is a very important thing you just raised, and I want to tell everyone watching. If you have a child or even an adult in your life who says, how do I know who's telling the truth, right or left? I have a virtually foolproof response. Whoever is trying to censor the other is the liar. Truth tellers are okay with dissent, liars are not. That has been always the truth. And one other truth, there is no example of the left in power where it does not suppress dissent. Whenever conservatives are in power, they don't give a damn if liberals speak up.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And we are definitely seeing a totalitarian technocracy. I think that's what's different right now in 2022 with the Twitter files coming out and Elon Musk exposing the real censorship and shadow banning that's been taking place. When you saw what took place with the Twitter files all coming out and Elon exposing this stuff, what was your first reaction when you took a look at that?
My first reaction was we knew all of this was happening. So we bless God or fate that Elon Musk, who is not ideological, he just actually believes people should have free speech. Well, that's his ideology. By the way, that alone is a great ideology if you simply believe in free speech. What was the latest poll about young Americans? Oh, about Americans generally. And this was published in USA Today. So this is not a conservative poll or a conservative report. That the great majority of Democrats do not believe in free speech for hate speech. The majority of Republicans do. And the imbalance is overwhelming. 38% more women believe in suppressing free speech than men.
Interesting.
I have noted, and I know the left does not know how to debate truth, so they only call you names. So they call me a misogynist. But if we don't recognize that we have a female problem in terms of good and evil and freedom and tyranny, then it is because people are afraid to ever criticize the female of the species. Men have been emasculated, and the definition of emasculation is intimidated by women. And men, we all know, overwhelmingly commit brutal crimes, obviously rapes, but that's not called anti-male. But when we say that overwhelmingly women want to suppress free speech, overwhelmingly women want to sexualize children, that's all of a sudden hate speech. But the left never asks, is it true? Is it true is a conservative question, not a left-wing question. We have a very serious problem in that boys were raised to control their natures, girls were not. And so emotions take over. I feel it's hate speech, and therefore, since I feel it's hate speech, we can suppress it. You can go to prison because I don't like what you said.
And it makes sense how we're seeing this feminization like you said, of the male in society, predominantly in the United States of America, where you see the model that they want a male to be is a straight female. They want us to be completely demasculinized. They want to take away what God has given us to be males in a society, to quite literally push society forward.
Well, that's
And
why
it's
they
quite the
came up
opposite.
with the word toxic masculinity.
Absolutely.
To them, masculinity is toxic by definition.
So let me ask you this. Don't you find it absurd? Because I always find it absurd when you see the feminists clash with the trans community. Because on one side, they're pro-woman, the God is a woman, the whole Ariana Grande song and all that. They're all for that. But then on the other side,
I
with the
never in my
trans-
life thought feminists were pro-women. There wasn't a day in my life I believed that. The damage feminism has done to women is incalculable. And this is the proof. If your daughter is in a sport, we will allow a biological male to defeat her in the sport. That's the proof feminists don't give a damn about women. Proof. You don't need anything more. Okay? It's like case closed.
And any woman that does decide to stand up and talk about it, like some of the athletes,
Yes, right.
they get destroyed.
That's correct.
Why
By
do you-
feminists.
Why do you think that's happening?
Because they're leftists before they care about women. They're destroyers. All of the left destroys. That's what I began by telling you. That's all they do is destroy. If you debate whether it's fair to have a biological male compete in female sports, there is something wrong with you. You can't think straight. Your conscience is broken. Your moral compass is broken. You are defective morally if you don't see how obviously unfair it is to women to have biological men compete against them. There is something wrong with you. If you're married to such a person, I feel for you.
Let me ask you this, Dennis. I mean, past 30, 40 years, how has America declined morally on a moral level? Have you been able to see the drastic change in just the past 30 years? How have things changed?
The acceptance of tyranny and the acceptance of absurdity, that has been the most dramatic. That overwhelmingly educated people say men give birth. Or in Norway, a woman arrested, a lesbian arrested for saying men cannot be lesbians.
Yeah.
So that's the acceptance of the absurd and the acceptance of tyranny. As the awful human being who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and obviously, therefore, invited to speak at the Harvard graduation, said, and I play this all the time, in the middle of the lockdowns, if you don't hear it from the government, it is not true. It's exactly what they said in the Hitler regime, in the communist regime under Stalin. This is the lodestone. This is the essence of tyranny. If you don't hear it from the state, it's a lie. That's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. The acceptance of lockdowns with no basis. Sweden proved how useless lockdown, not useless, how much they have harmed kids, but it doesn't matter to the left. Like it doesn't matter how much we harm women, it doesn't matter how much we harm kids. They are a harm machine.
They're an absolute death cult. They praise the murder of babies in the womb. And I want to talk a little bit more about totalitarianism and the authoritarian regimes we're seeing across the globe when we come back from the break, so stay with us. All right, let's keep going. All right, ready? And we are back with the great Dennis Prager. I want to continue this conversation, Dennis, because I love listening to you. I've been listening to you for a very long time.
Thank you.
I've learned so much, and it makes sense as to why the censorers are saying, don't listen to PragerU, because it's just laying out information, laying out history. And speaking of history, right? I think my generation, millennials, Gen Z, we're running into this dangerous place where we're not learning from history itself. And I think we do see that in situations like influential figures like Ye coming out and saying he loves Hitler, that he doesn't like to see Nazis demonized. How is this dangerous territory for a culture that's already embracing authoritarianism to forget and actually maybe possibly be convinced that Hitler was somehow a good guy? To me, it's unreal. I don't see how someone could take a look at Mein Kampf, The Final Solution, what happened in the World War II with the horrors that the Nazis committed, crimes against humanity, and conclude that Hitler was somehow a cool guy.
The only evil that they're taught in most American schools is American evil. That's how it happened. Because it doesn't help their agenda to tell you about the Gulag or about Auschwitz. And so if I even say Gulag or Auschwitz at an American university, let alone high school, most of them have no idea what I'm talking about. If you don't know what Gulag and Auschwitz are, you are an ignoramus of dangerous proportion. But they certainly know 1619. That they do know.
Because what's taking place at our universities is not education, it's indoctrination. How much blame do we put on these so-called educators and professors? Are they more activists and infiltrators of America to further dismantle us on a moral level? Or are they actual just indoctrinators or so-called professors? Like, how much is that taking place on these college campuses of these people just indoctrinating
Well,
minds?
I've said for decades, you send your kid to college, you're playing Russian roulette with his or her values. But now it's true for elementary school and high school. If you love your children, you should take them out of school. You should homeschool them or find one of the handful of schools that actually believes in truth and beauty and goodness and character development and history.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dennis Prager here on the front lines. Make sure to go check out everything that PragerU is doing. What's the specific website, Mr. Prager?
PragerU.com.
There you have it. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the front lines. I'll see you guys on the next one.